ஆமி வந்து சொல்கிறாங்க அவங்க பெரியாக்கள் அவங்க இல்லையாண்டு.
இல்லையா இல்லை, நான் என்னோட ஆரோக்கியனா நான் சொன்னவியல் வைகாசி 17 18ஆம் தேதி ஓமந்தையில் 2 ஆண்டு வீழ வாகனத்தில் எல்லாம் அவங்க எத்தனை ஆண்டு.
These are all false allegations, made up stories.
There were serious violations from both sides, from the government forces and the LTT, that happened during the war, and there's been no independent investigation in Sri Lanka.
The battle in the Jaffna Peninsula in the north resulted in tens of thousands of casualties and displacement of hundreds of thousands of residents in the northern and eastern provinces.
But besides the damage to the properties, it's the disappearances of the family members that still trouble many Sri Lankans, such as Joseph, who lost 2 sons-in-law at the end of the war. Both were Tamil Tigers, members of separatist movement, the LTTE. In May 2009, they surrendered to the Sri Lankan army during the administration of then President Mahinda Rajapaksa.
அங்கே நாங்கள் இருக்கிற நேரம் ஆமி மைக்கில் அனௌன்ஸ் பண்ணவங்க எல்லாரும் சரண்டர் பண்ணுங்கோ, உங்களுக்கு புனர்வாழ்வு கொடுத்து உங்களை விடுதலை செய்வோம். அதை நம்பி நாங்கள் ஒப்படைச்சோம்.
But they never returned.
ஆமி வந்து அவங்க வருவாங்க, விசாரணைக்கு கூப்பிட்டுன்னு போக அவங்க எல்லாம் விசாரணை செய்து, ஐயோ அங்கிள் உங்களுடைய ஆக்கெல்லாம் பெரிய பிக் ஷாட், பெரிய ஃபைட்டர்ஸ், அவங்கள ஆரம்ப உறுப்பினர், அவங்கள ஆமி தட்டியிருப்பாங்க என்று சொன்னாங்க எனக்கு.
These are only allegations that you find in a very complex situation like this, but I can tell you as a Rehabilitation Commissioner those days, and when they were taken into the rehabilitation process, none of them I can assure you, tell you with responsibility, never went missing. We, from the point 0 to the end, we have records, what the programs that they went through, how they were taken in, then when they were taken in, the documentation, those things were released into the internet, those things released to their families. These things have been done, and if there are allegations, these are all false allegations, made up stories.
Well, I think one of the problems is that the first UN report was actually very flawed. You know, when you went through it, you found that because the Sri Lankan government didn't participate in it, they just cited things that were completely untrue. I mean, there's one citation I remember where they accused the Sri Lankan government of doing something on the basis of a report, and that report was about the LTT. So it was a very shoddy piece of work.
The last stage of the war was brutal. You've not had a really comprehensive system of addressing truth, justice, reparations. So 6 years, we've had a change of government. 6 months into that government, there's been a lot of noise, there's been a lot of promises, there's been initiatives, but again, real tangible change hasn't happened. And looking at what they went through for nearly 3 decades, there's a lot more that needs to happen in those areas. And granted, one can't rush into these things, you need time. But for the people on the ground, they need answers. They need to know where their loved one is.
So I'm afraid human rights is a tool. But of course, countries like ours that are weak have got to realize that it's a tool. And therefore, we have got to do two things. One is whatever is wrong by our own people should be corrected, and we haven't done enough of that. The second, we have to insist on transparency and accountability. That should be through our own mechanisms.
To give due recognition, the President, for the first time after the end of the war, on the 4th of February, made a declaration of peace. And that, I think, is an important step to say things happen and one needs to do more. But one of the things I think we need to all look to is the next parliament. So in the long term, what would be good to see is positions, a roadmap, for example, taken by the government that comes to office, and a commitment. So it's not just a promise that's made during campaign, but we see through post-election and after the new government is formed.
அதைத்தான் நாங்கள் ஆமிக்கும் அவங்க பிழை செய்திருந்தால் அவங்கள தண்டனை செய்து அவங்களுக்கு ரிலீஸ் பண்ணுங்க இல்லை எங்களுக்கு காட்டுங்க.